Do you think fasting is just skipping meals? Well, think again. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me again today. My name is Dr. Mark Shankman, and today we're talking fasting. Today's Obesity Project episode number 22. What happens when to your body hour by hour when you fast? So, we're going to look at fasting over time, and I'm going to explain some of the things that occur during fasting. And if I turn this way, you'll see that basically fasting is eating windows, right? So it's essentially how long you plan on eating. So maybe you do 8 hours from like 12 in the afternoon to, maybe 8 at night. And then from 8 till the next day at noon is your fasting window. So let's look hour by hour at what actually happens when you fast. So before I get into that, do you think fasting is just skipping meals? Well, think again. Every hour you fast, your body goes through radical science-backed changes that help burn fat, reverse insulin resistance, and heal inflammation. So again, here's what happens to your body hour by hour when you stop eating. So let's talk about the first 4 hours. This is known as the fed state, where you've just eaten a meal. So what happens during this period of time? We see insulin spike as your body begins digesting food. And of course, your biggest spikes are going to come from carbohydrates, but you're also going to get some spikes from protein and very, very minimal spikes from fat. But all of the food will create some rise in insulin, of course, carbs being the biggest. So glucose then is used for immediate energy or stored as stored as glycogen in the liver and in the muscles. So that glucose, through a process called glycogenesis, becomes glycogen. So basically, it's taking all of those glucose molecules and just kind of adding them together into a big string that is stored in the liver and in the muscles as glycogen. But here, the main thing that's going on is that fat burning is actually turned off. When you're eating, when you're in the fed state, your body is in storage mode. So your body says, well, we have some calories coming in, we have some energy coming in, and so we need to store that away for later use. And then one other thing that happens during the fed state is the hormone cholecystokinin. And so cholecystokinin is in response to fats, and peptide YY, which is a satiety hormone as well, are increased. And the peptide YY is increased with protein. So fat and protein trigger these satiety hormones. You notice there's one missing macronutrient that doesn't seem to have a satiety hormone tied to it, and that's carbohydrate. So when cholecystokinin and peptide YY are triggered, their levels begin to rise to help with satiety and digestion. So again, the takeaway message from this first 4 hours of fasting is when insulin is high, fat burning completely off the table. And when insulin is low, then we can use that fat or that sugar to burn. But in the fed state, we're going to get a bump in that insulin. Sorry, I got a little bug flying around. You're going to see that bump in insulin, and we're going to store that as either glycogen or as fat later on. All right, so from hours 4 through 12, this is known as the post-absorptive state. And we start to see a metabolic shift here. So insulin begins to drop and slowly diminish over time. Our blood sugar and energy now come from stored glycogen instead of from a meal, right? So our blood sugar begins to drop. The brain says, "Oh, I noticed the blood sugar is beginning to drop down," triggers certain hormones to like glucagon to start breaking down the glycogen out of our muscles and our liver, primarily the liver initially. And then you also will begin to feel hungry due to the hunger hormone ghrelin starting to peak or beginning to rise. So that's what happens metabolically. Well, in the brain, mental clarity may start to improve as the blood sugar begins to stabilize. and you begin to enter a mild fat burning zone. So mild, not crazy fat burning, not major release of fat stores, but just a mild fat burning state. So here, what we want to kind of focus on in the hours 4 through 12, your body starts transitioning from using glucose as energy to fat for fuel. So you go from sugar burning into fat burning. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that our bodies are hybrid engines. We actually can utilize the two forms of energy, glucose and fat. And I have a little gnat flying around my head that's driving me crazy. If I start swinging and moving, I'm not crazy. I'm not losing my mind. This isn't me with lack of glucose to the brain. This little gnat just won't go away. So again, we are a hybrid engine. We can burn glucose for fuel, or we can burn fat for fuel. The key contributing director of which energy source we use is insulin. If insulin is high, we're going to only be able to use glucose. If insulin goes down and drops down to a very minor level, then we can begin to utilize that fat for fuel. All right, so that's the first 12 hours. Let's get into the second 12 hours and what actually happens. So hours 12 through 16, this is where we really start to utilize fat as a means of energy, and we begin to really push ourselves into a fat burning mode. Now, this is after hour 12. Like, imagine if you didn't eat after dinner and you slept 8 hours, you might be here already, even without skipping a meal, without skipping breakfast, or without skipping any meals. But in hours 12 through 16, fat burning mode turns on, and we get a bigger metabolic transition. So liver glycogen begins to deplete. We only have about 12 to 24 hours. Most people have about 24 hours worth of glycogen in their liver, but the liver glycogen is beginning to deplete, and your body switches more effectively into a fat burning mode for energy. And here's where we begin to start to develop some ketones. So you enter a sort of light form of ketosis, or a very mild form of ketosis, where we're starting to break down those fatty acids in our fat cells. We're starting to develop ketones, which incidentally, ketones are really amazing because ketones have about the same amount of energy as a glucose molecule. So a ketone is pretty much equivalent to glucose. And whereas, our bodies might prefer glucose, if given equal amounts, our brain actually prefers ketones. And so if there's equal amounts, the brain is going to use the ketones first and then switch to the glucose afterwards. So it's really interesting how ketosis works. But in this zone, we start to see low levels of ketones begin to rise. That's from a metabolic standpoint. Now, we also start to see some hormonal shifts. And this is what's really important and really profound about moving out beyond that 12 hours. So the first hormonal shift we see is an increase in growth hormone. And increase in growth hormone does a couple things. First of all, it preserves muscle to make sure that we're not using our muscle. So it's actually, a lot of people think that fasting, the biggest problem with fasting is you're going to actually break down muscle. Well, that doesn't make any inherent sense. Think about it from prehistoric times. If we ate yesterday and we hadn't yet found another animal to kill, we haven't been able to, find any sources of nutrition. If we just completely broke down our protein, we broke down our muscles for energy, we'd never be able to go out and find more food. So like that whole concept of, well, we're going to burn through our protein or our muscles really just doesn't make any sense. So growth hormone increases, which preserves the muscles and helps us burn fat. Now, the other thing that happens is insulin is now very low. It's really dropped down quite a bit. And now we start to get prime conditions for weight loss. So the key takeaway in this phase is that this is really where the magic starts. Our body starts tapping in to our stored fats. So we're not relying on energy from food. The body's saying, okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. I'm starting to see where we're not getting any food. It's been quite a while. I don't know when the next time food is going to come. So it's time to start using all of this stored fat we have on our body. And that's really the only purpose for the fat to be there. The fat isn't there to make you look ugly. The fat isn't there to turn away the opposite sex. The fat isn't there to make you feel bad about yourself. The fat is simply a storage of energy. And honestly, if we didn't have that stored energy and we had to rely on food all the time, every waking moment of the day, we would die in our sleep every single night. So, being able to burn fat is a very important aspect of human physiology. We need to be able to burn that fat or we'll die. So, in hours 16 through 24, here's really some special things begin to happen. This is where ketosis and autophagy actually go ahead and kick in. And these are two very important processes that we'll get a little bit more into. So this is sort of our internal detox mode. This is the opportunity for our body to sort of recycle and renew itself. So ketone production ramps up. We begin fueling our bodies, but also our brain more efficiently. As I mentioned, those ketones are really preferred by the brain. And then autophagy begins. So our body starts to break down and clear up all these damaged cells and junk old proteins that just aren't functioning properly anymore. This is our body's way of clearing out the old and bringing in the new. This is just like the cycle of life. The old goes out, the new comes in. Our bodies have an amazing ability to repair itself. But in order to access this ability to really get into repair mode, then we have to be fasting for roughly about 16 to 24 hours. It's different in everybody, but typically the average person, autophagy begins at hours 16 through 24. And autophagy simply means auto, self, phagy, eat. So this means we're eating ourselves. We're actually breaking down our own body's cells and organelles. So like the mitochondria and the nucleus and the ribosomes and all the things that actually generate proteins and, allow the cell to replicate and the cell to function properly. Well, over time, those parts and pieces start to break down. Think of autophagy as, if you ran a factory 24/7 and you never gave time for maintenance and you never gave time for machinery to be repaired, you can imagine how efficient and effective that factory would be after, many, many months of that. Well, the same thing with our bodies. We do start to break down. We do start to have damaged cells. We do start to have junky proteins that are kind of bogging down the system. And autophagy allows us to clear those out. So it's essentially a cellular cleanup mode. And there are also some health perks that occur in this window of ketosis and autophagy. First of all, there's an anti-inflammatory process. Many actually processes are activated, and we get a decrease in inflammation. And again, the amazing thing is that the hunger hormone ghrelin begins to fall. And so, when I talked about, and I do intermittent fasting, although right now on carnivore I'm not, but eventually I'm going to build that back into my carnivore diet. But up until the carnivore diet, just a little bit ago, less than a week ago, I was doing intermittent fasting pretty routinely. And so, most people, when they talk about fasting or when people hear about fasting, what they think is you're just going to get hungrier, hungrier, and hungrier until you're, just you can't take it anymore and you're just going to eat. The truth of the matter is, if you wait long enough, ghrelin will drop, hunger goes away, and you feel perfectly fine. So now we're getting into some of the extended fasts. So after 24 to 48 hours worth of fasting, here's where fat burning accelerates to great degrees. You get deep, deep fat loss. Your body is now running completely on fat stores and on ketones. Insulin levels have hit their absolute lowest point, and autophagy deepens, especially in the liver, in the brain, and in the skin. If you're getting older like I am and you got a little bit of extra skin, or if you lost a lot of weight and you find now that you have excess baggy skin on your body, well, fasting, getting into this 24 to 48-hour window allows your body to perform that autophagy. So, like your skin cells, if there's excess skin, that's one of the first things that your body's going to break down and utilize that protein and those components of your skin to make new skin cells, to make new procedures, not new procedures, new proteins and cellular structures that tighten and take up that excess skin. So, if you're getting wrinkled, if you've lost a lot of weight very rapidly and you have the excess skin, autophagy and this extended fast is a great way to take care of that. We get some hormonal upgrades as well. We get a kick into norepinephrine and adrenaline. These two brain chemicals as well as body hormones begin to increase. And we actually see an energy increase and your energy rises. You also get some mood enhancing brain chemicals like BDNF, which is brain derived neurotrophic factor, which go up and really provide an amazing amount of mental clarity. Now, I personally have only done a 24-hour fast. I have not extended beyond that. With carnivore, I do believe that I will be able to go even longer periods of time. So I may do some longer fasts, but honestly, just full transparency, the longest fast I've ever done is a 24-hour fast. And it was much easier than I thought. It wasn't that hard to go from 16 hours, which I was pretty much doing on a daily basis, up to the 24 hours. It wasn't really that difficult. So here's one of the main takeaways here, and a common misconception that a lot of people have is that fasting does not slow down your metabolism. It actually boosts it. It turns your body into a fat-burning, brain-boosting machine. And think about it from this standpoint. Again, think of the hungry wolf. The hungry wolf that's gone 2, 3 days without eating. Its brain is dialed in. Its mind is focused. It's got plenty of energy to go out and capture, its prey and for it to be able to eat again. If your, brain function decreased, if your energy was depleted, if you start breaking down all your muscle tissue, you're never going to eat again. So the body is actually prepared and sort of ramps up during fasting. So some things to watch out for with fasting, though. You may, especially in the early stages, and if you've never done fasting before, you may feel tired, you may feel cold or irritable, especially if you're new to fasting. So these are things that you should expect. And it's only in the early stages. The more you do this, the more accustomed to it you become, and the less you start to notice these symptoms. You need to definitely stay hydrated. You might need to add some electrolytes. If you're drinking water only, some electrolytes will help with those feelings of fatigue and that irritability and that cold sensation. So things like sodium, potassium, magnesium, those are the three biggies. And you want to listen to your body. And so let's talk about who actually shouldn't do extended fasting. There are several categories of people that should not do extended fasting. First, pregnant women. Not a good idea if you're eating for two and you're developing an embryo and a baby in your body, and then extended fasting, not a great idea. Children and teens should not be doing extended fasting. They just don't have the average child, although that even the average child now is obese. But if the children are lean, then they just don't have enough fat stored on their body to really have this be very effective and safe. Those with eating disorders, it can exacerbate eating disorders, of course. And if you're on medications for blood sugar or blood pressure, you want to make sure you talk to your doctor first. Very often, from fasting or a ketogenic low carbohydrate diet, you're going to see much improvement in insulin resistance, and the amount of medicines that you're taking will probably need to be lowered so that you don't become hypoglycemic or low blood sugar. So let's wrap this up. Some of the key takeaways. First of all, fasting is not starvation. Starvation is when you've used up all your fat stores and now you actually are breaking down muscle and bone and anything your body has. But honestly, we have hundreds of thousands of calories stored in our bodies as fat. Some obese people can fast even up to a year without needing any nutrition from outside sources. But if you're lean, if you're an athlete, if you don't carry a lot of body weight, then it's a different story. But fasting isn't starvation. There is protein protection. Your body has plenty of energy stores. It's healing. Also, every hour without food, your body becomes more and more insulin sensitive, more efficient at burning fat, and better prepared to repair itself. So these are amazing benefits that we can get from fasting, especially the extended fast, but even with intermittent fasting. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you break the cycle of insulin resistance. So start this when you eat, not just so you want to think about when you eat, not just what you eat. That's the most important thing. And how you break your fast is equally as important as how much time you actually do fast. So, have you ever tried fasting? How long have you gone? What's the longest you've ever gone? Please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to continue the conversation and find out what you guys have done. Have you done the 3-day, 5-day, 7-day water fast? Have you used electrolytes? Did you find that there were, you were getting headaches or, you were having any problems? I'd love to hear what your experiences were. And then, of course, share this with someone who thinks that fasting slows their metabolism. It's just the opposite. It actually boosts metabolism. So share this with someone who needs this information, who needs to learn the benefits of fasting, and make sure to follow, my account. Make sure to watch more videos on how to beat obesity, insulin resistance, and reclaim your health naturally. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you and I appreciate your attention. Like, share, and comment, and I'll see you in the next video.